Good morning, everyone. Today is the July the 30th, and this is our weekly COVID-19 update briefing. Since our briefing last week, we've had a terrible statistics and reality of the number of positive cases. We now have, as of this morning, 1,978 positive cases in Louisiana, and deaths have increased. That's an increase of 277 over last week, and have experienced 64 deaths, which is an increase of 11 over last week. And as a matter of fact, we had 52 new cases just yesterday. So that means we will continue to remain in phase two of the recovery, at least through August the 7th, and the governor will let us know on or about that time whether he's going to continue us in phase two or some other action. The reasons for remaining in phase two is that Louisiana is the number one in the nation for per capita cases of positive COVID-19 tests. The tests in Louisiana, we've had 112,773 positive results, and deaths of 3,769. The governor is obviously very concerned about this, and he said it should be a matter of concern to all of us, and it is definitely that. The governor is also concerned about the lack of hospital space, but more specifically, the lack of a sufficient medical staff to handle all of the cases that are coming into the hospitals. This is quite a concern of all of us, but the governor is specifically concerned about that. So there is some controversy about whether or not to wear the mask, but almost everyone these days has recognized that wearing masks will save lives. A state had a survey done by a very reputable firm, and they have confirmed that 76% of the people in Louisiana, on a sample size of some 6,000 people, that it's safe and we should wear masks to save lives. Businesses are responsible for seeing that their customers, patrons, and employees wear the mask. It is incumbent on them to do that. So businesses, if we're going to try to get into phase three and get out of the doldrums we're in now, and if we want to get the economy going, we simply have got to have widespread compliance with wearing of the mask. The state has now taken more direct actions against people who are not complying. The state fire marshal and the governor have announced recently that the policy for the state is now, if you have 3 citations, 3 instances of violating the no food or drinks within bars, you will lose your license. 4 bars have in fact lost their license, their permits to operate. They'll have a chance to go before a review board or a legal setting in about around the first week of August, and their permit could be restored or continue to be out of business. Butch Browning, the state fire marshal, has indicated that most bars throughout the state are complying, and that is what is happening in the Shreveport-Bossier area. But there are a few that are resisting it, and they're putting people's life in jeopardy. So the new policy for the state with regard to enforcement of the no mask in bars, if you get 3 instances, your permit will be pulled. If there is a blatant, egregious incident, you only get 1 strike. But for the most part, as I indicated earlier, most bars and similar establishments are complying with the requirement to wear the mask. At this time, we'd like to have our 2 public safety department heads make some comments relative to this and other important city business. Chief Zagone, you're up, and Chief McWilliams will follow.
I know I always start off thanking the first responders and healthcare workers on the front line and of this pandemic and this fight against COVID-19. I want to thank them now, but I also want to thank the public for your support and the tax renewal coming up. Right now, early voting is taking place over at the library on Beckett Street and Benton, and August 15th is the election day. I want to clarify a few things. This is a renewal. I pull my tax record. I invite you to pull your tax record. If you look back, for the last few years, you've been paying the 6.19%. I look back at mine, and that is what you're paying. This is not an increase, and this tax renewal is dedicated to law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS. These men and women of these departments have been in the fight and on the front line of this pandemic, and they're going to keep doing that and protecting the citizens and guests of Bossier City at the best of their ability. So thank you in advance for your support, and please go vote. Thank you.
Good morning. I would also like to once again thank the first responders and the medical community on the front line of combating the pandemic. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Bossier for doing their due diligence to follow the proclamation set forth by the governor. As of today, from the police side, we really haven't seen any significant incidents in reference to mask wearing, anything our businesses doing what they've been asked to do. Once again, kudos to y'all for making that happen and preventing law enforcement from having to respond to such incidents, so we can keep our focus on crime prevention and responding to calls for service. As Chief Zagone mentioned, I'd like to thank you up front, the citizens, for supporting the tax renewal. As he stated, I'd like to reiterate, it is a renewal, it is not an increase, and it's dedicated specifically for public safety salaries. So your support in that is greatly thankful. We really thank you for your support. Thank you.
I want to clarify perhaps a little confusion with regard to the requirements for bars and what they can and can't do. The governor's last proclamation, number 89, says that bars are closed for on-premise consumption of food or drink. However, they are permitted to have takeout or curbside pickups. But I would also remind the citizens that in Bossier City we have an open container law which prohibits just that, having any kind of open drink in your car. Plus, we also prohibit drive-through windows where you can pick up an alcoholic beverage and have it in the car. Those still remain long-standing ordinances which would be in effect. So what can we as individuals do? The simplest thing we can do is comply with what the evidence clearly shows, and that evidence is that if we do wear a mask, if we do wash our hands, if we do maintain social distancing, and those who have pre-existing conditions or symptoms of COVID, stay home, contact your medical provider. But if we're going to be able to progress into phase 3, we have got to reduce the instances of positive cases. There is some indications that the curve is beginning to flatten a little bit, but we're still a long way from being where we need to be to progress out of phase 2 into phase 3. The governor will probably make a announcement next Tuesday of whether we're going to go forward or stay where we are, but and there's some indications that we, as I mentioned earlier, flattening the curve a little, but we're a long way from being where we need to be. So in closing, I'd like to urge all of us to wear a mask and follow the preventive and mitigation protocols which we've repeated so often. Thank you, and our next briefing will be next Thursday, August the 6th. Good day.